Hello, I'm Lisa Bowerman and I play Bernie Summerfield, and welcome to Audioheads podcast.
Hi there, welcome to Geeks Assembled Audioheads again. This is Susan, and to review The Island of Dr. Moreau, done by Big Finish as part of the H.G. Wells box set. This is the third one that we've done, and we are gathered here today, assembled here, as it were. And just wanted to talk about this. First of all, let's do some opening thoughts. Go around. How about let's start with Tim Wells. Why don't you give us an opening thought to this and stuff?
Well, it was okay. I don't think it was nearly as compelling as the two previous ones we've done. It was. I don't know. It's one of those weird ones because this was written over 100 years ago, but you can't tell if the production of it today is slanting one way or the other. In other words, what I'm saying is I felt more sympathetic to the creatures than I did the protagonists, the humans. So, I mean, I don't know if that's the intent of the writer or if it's some kind of critique of colonialism or something, or if that's what was intended by the writer, or if that's just the way it was presented today, where that kind of thing gets criticized quite a bit. So, but I enjoyed it. I just thought it could have been, I don't know, it wasn't bad, but I just think the story itself wasn't as interesting as the two previous stories we had done. Not that you should compare them, but I'm just saying, it struck me that the protagonist in this story was a bit weak. I don't know. I mean, if that's intentional, it just seemed like, I mean, yeah, these are scary monsters, but at the end of the day, all they do is drag him into a tent and recite a litany of how they're trying to be good. So I'm really not sure. Maybe I missed the point of the story, but it was a good enough listen. I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay, thank you. And how about you, Lee? What did you think of Island of Dr. Moreau?
It's 2 hours and 20 minutes of my life that I will not get back. I have a lot of praise for Big Finish, and every so often you do get a bit of a clunker, and for me this was a clunker. As I said, 2 hours 20 minutes, far too long for this story in my opinion. And everybody knows I'm not a big fan of narration, and I would say an hour and 45 minutes of it was nearly all narration. I agree with Tim. I sort of felt sorry for the beasts. I sort of sided with the beasts on this. But for me, there wasn't much to put praise on this one. I don't know, it just didn't grab me.
Can I ask you, do you think that's because of the story? Sorry. Do you think that's because a weakness in the story or the weakness in the presentation?
I don't know. For one thing, I'm comparing it to various Island of Dr. Moreau productions I've seen movie-wise. With Brandon, what's the one back in the 1970s? Bette Lancaster. For me, Dr. Moreau, in my opinion, was miscast in this one. Nothing against Ronald Pickup; he's a brilliant actor, but for me, he wasn't menacing enough. He didn't have the gravitas as these actors who I've just mentioned, Brandon, Lancaster, what was in the movies, just didn't come across as. It just didn't grab me, and I just thought when I was listening to it, I thought very, very miscast as Dr. Moreau. I mean, it brilliantly all played out, well acted and everything like that. But I just don't know. It was just one of these ones. I'm not going to listen to this one again, to be honest. That's my opening thoughts now, Susan.
Great. And Alex, what did you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, that's the other issue as well. H.G. Wells has been done before several times, and the other two versions were actually better. And the other two versions, if you never heard the story before, or if you never saw it, or if you never read it, it wouldn't have suffered. Now, in terms of the book, I think I might have read it. Again, it's along the same lines as, yes, some of it is colonialism. You have other similar stories like Animal Farm and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley, and they knew each other. Not H.G. Wells. They're probably, yeah, he was before Orwell's time. So it's very difficult to try to come up with a world, and that's where I felt that this had missed, is you didn't really feel that there was a complete world, because visually it's more interesting, and all you have to worry about is the makeup and the, only show a monster, maybe two monsters or whatever, and that's where you had the benefit of the 78 version, and with all its faults and its campiness and its low budget. I've rarely seen people that said, "Oh, I hated this from beginning to end." It's a little more difficult to present beasts in terms of hearing, and then trying to have a dialogue, and then try to keep the viewer or the listener interested in that. Plus, as Lee said, there's too much narration. So after a while, I admit, I started kind of going, should I be doing something else? And it's not their fault. But I think it was not only the story, but the way they did present it. And yeah, you have to have, most stories benefit from a us and them sort of worldview. And not that it wasn't here, but I think it was very difficult to present audio-wise. It's very difficult to present that. And so I think after a while it sort of fell on the narrator, because I just kind of got bored, and then I kind of went, how long is this going? And then I was kind of like, well, which characters am I listening to? And visually, that would have actually helped. And even in the time machine, I didn't have that confusion. I knew who the characters were. So I think it might have been a little question also of the casting, the fact that the presence, the gravitas is not there. So you just kind of got lost, which I guess that's good if you're presenting a story on an island, but you have to be with the characters.
So, yeah, it dragged. It was really a long deal. And I'm not one to lose interest in these things, but I had lost interest a bunch of times. And, I do feel for the beasts. I do feel for the ships that went down and stuff. I don't really have a lot of compassion or whatever for the doctor and the narrator. So anyway, that was pretty much what I thought. Boy, anything that we did like about it? Let's start with Lee this time. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
No, my question is about, because obviously this was written a long time ago, and the politics of today are quite different than the politics of then. If he did write this as a critique of colonialism, which is what I guess he was aiming at, obviously that's not going to work today, where you can see all nations trying to completely erase obliterate their past. In other words, they're so ashamed and guilt-ridden about how they got where they are, that they don't want to acknowledge the past. I mean, that's a very current situation we're in now politically, on both sides of the pond. I would say that is that a reason it doesn't work, or is it just a story about going to an island of scary monsters, or is it no politics at all? So I mean, that was my question going into it, listening to it, and I don't really fault the production. I would just say that Lee has a point. If you're going to do an audio book, maybe you should just do an audiobook reading. But if you're going to do a cast drama, you should try to limit the narration. You should have more and more scenes. And I know it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, is you have to have somebody that can accomplish that, and maybe they just didn't pull it off this time. But I don't know, I just didn't find the story compelling, and I'm wondering if that's maybe why nowadays in our world we feel more sorry for the beasties than we do for the protagonists of the novel, who we think are a bunch of assholes. I don't know.
Well, I mean, not to interrupt Tim or Lee, that's the other question too, because as I was saying to Susan, you know, we don't live for 200 years. So, I mean, we can, as people, we can only be responsible for what we do and the people we know. We can't be responsible for what, we can only be like maybe 1% or maybe 5% responsible about what governments do. So,
well, no, my point though is my point was actually just trying to say that maybe this story is just too old to adapt to today's way of thinking, whereas we did The Shape of Things to Come, which is a timeless classic. It works in any decade, I would think, even though it takes place in the past. We were like, wow, this is because it's a timey-wimey story, so it works in any time. Whereas you know, this may be a bit dated, and maybe they did the best they could with the actual story. Because to me, I think I've never seen those movies that you were talking about, but to be fair, those were pretty much labeled as horror films. You know, in other words, it's the big scary monsters on the island that, you know, and I'm guessing that none of that other intent by the writer, whether it was there or not, was present in those films. I'm not sure.
Right, but Tim, I understand what you're saying completely, but at the same point, we can't change what happened 100, 200 years ago. I mean, we could try to add an addendum or a proviso, or say, well, because this historical fact happened to hunt there. They're actually debating in Boston about changing the names of some streets, because I guess the streets that the people were named after, they were somewhat racist, especially by today's standards. But I mean, you can't control that. I mean, you know, we're talking about history and streets that have been named that for 90 years. And that's the other thing. You can't constantly we can be responsible for what we do now or what we want to do now, perhaps. But you can't blame something from 90 years ago or 200 years ago. We weren't alive back then. So we have no influence on that. We could say we don't agree with it.
I agree with you, and we don't want to get too far on the weeds.
I'm just trying to say
I'm just wondering if that was the author's intent, to be a critique of colonialism, because that's that kind of thing is still going on. And I don't know if it was or not. He was an American writer, wasn't he? So.
What, H.G. Wells? No, I don't think so. No,
he was British.
Yeah, he was British.
Oh, was he British?
Yeah. No, it was a critique of colonialism, but again, that's the other question, because there are some parts of the world that are still slightly colonial, but that, again, I could say maybe that was the fault of the way it was presented or pacing or whatever. And all you have to do is come up with like the other authors I mentioned, Orwell and Huxley.
Well, my point is, if you're going to have a critique of colonialism,
right,
that might not work in today's world, because, like I said, each nation has so much guilt about that kind of thing that they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. They want to erase it. So if that was the author's intent, we're listening to an audio that makes us feel more sorry for the creatures than the protagonists of the book. Right. Whereas that wasn't his intent when he wrote it back then, or was it? That's my question. Or is it just a book about scary monsters?
Well, again, I mean, yes, it is, and yes, it isn't, because again, I could take a book.
That could work both ways.
Yeah, I could take a book from 1900s, and it won't necessarily translate well 90 years later.
Let's let Lee get
okay, go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, well, my opinion is this production needed the sort of style what The Shape of Things to Come had, because they updated it, they sort of modernized it, and it worked so well. This, they didn't really update it. I've read the book. There is narration. It is told through the narrator's point of view of the book, but as I said, it's too much to go the full hog with the narration. As you say, you do feel for the animals, the beasts. I think people's opinions on things have changed through the years. we feel more for animals than we do human beings these days. And for me, the only good thing about this audio for me was, I mean, the production, I can't knock the production, and the acting was brilliant, but as I say, I think Ronald Pickup was miscast. But I did like the "Are We Not Men" speeches by the Beast. But when all that started, I thought that was so well done. That was for me. That was the outstanding part of this audio. Was the "Are We Not Men."
Lee, let me ask you a question. How many pages was it? I thought it was around 300 odd, or is it more pages?
I can't remember how many. I don't really count the pages.
No, but it's not a small book.
Well, no. I think it was. Because back in the day, they didn't really used to write that large books. I think it was only Tolkien what used to write huge novels. But H.G. Wells, there was only there was only thin books, wasn't there? And
now, did you see the point about colonialism, or was it understood?
Well, for me, that went straight over my head. The colonialism didn't even come into my head when I was listening to this. So for me, it didn't do that.
Yeah, and of course, I don't know if the group here will agree with me, but in most societies, you do have some sort of class-oriented system, of some sort of system, higher or lower, right or wrong. Most society,
Yeah.
Well, most free societies have tried to abolish that way of thinking. I only brought up the colonialism angle because I thought maybe that was the intent of the writer, because that was what the kind of thing H.G. Wells does. He tries to kind of critique things in a not in-your-face kind of manner.
While he's writing a story, a really good story.
Yeah. And in today, you see so much guilt about colonialism by so many younger people, like a lot of people at Big Finish probably. I'm not criticizing them, but I'm just saying there's a tendency in our lifetime where you want everybody to feel guilty for the past. And I don't think that's exactly a healthy way to live. To be honest, colonialism might have been a noble effort to teach the peoples of the world the British way of life. I don't know. I'm not defending it, and I'm not critiquing it, but I'm just saying I'm not criticizing it. I'm just saying, our history is so short over here. It's only 200 plus years, and you have idiots that think God made this land for the white man, which is not true, because our history is very well documented that never happened. We conquered this land. We killed a lot of people. We took it over, and we enjoyed slavery. So I'm just saying, but I'm not going to feel guilty for that today, because that's not who I am today. That's not who anybody here is today. So Lee's not going to feel guilty because tea wasn't their idea. They got it from India. So I mean, you get my point. I think we live in a world. That's why when I listened to the story in that kind of way of thinking, I thought, well, maybe Wells's intentions weren't really followed through on in his book because of the liberal, well, I wouldn't say liberal, but the guilt that is prevalent in our world today for the past of the world, the past sins of the world, especially in the USA and the UK. So I don't know. Like, again, I don't want to get out into the weeds with politics, but I'm just saying I'm wondering if when we listen to this story today, we feel more sorry for the beasties than we do the humans, or was that the intent of the writer over 100 years ago? That's my question.
Well, there was a because of maybe the weakness of the protagonist as portrayed not by Marlon Brando or by Lancaster, but by
well, the protagonist is actually the guy on the boat,
right?
I think the not the Dr. Moreau. He's just kind of it's the so-called baddie, because what he does is appalling. I mean, vivisection is nothing to laugh at. I mean, but
they talk about that being like just something that any scientist would be willing to do.
Sure, in Nazi Germany.
In the course of the story, that's what they went to.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, again, that's why I don't mean to veer off topic, but that's why I'm trying to say about, George Orwell and Aldous Huxley and other writers that, yeah, maybe they were more heavy-handed, but I think the problem is the story seemed to kind of get a little bit, I don't know if it was they didn't want to get too political or they only wanted to have it in parts. I'm not quite sure. Because like I said, it sort of lost my attention. Go ahead, Lee.
Also, it could be as well, it could be the listener's way of thinking that has changed over the years as well. We may not think the same as we did all those years back. Our opinions have changed. We've been modernised, and we, as we say, we care. For me, we cared more for the beast in this story than we did the man. It's the listener's opinion could have, changed through the years. I mean, H.G. Wells could have wrote it back then for the I can't even say it now, colonialism, but it might not have come across. The Big Finish might have changed that slant on it.
Right.
But for me, yeah, it's the beast. The beast was the ones as you say, we all felt for the beast.
So in other words, you went into it as basically kind of a horror story, but the irony is that the beasties were actually the cool people in the story rather than the good guys.
Yeah, in this adaptation, the beasties were, well, for me, were the cool guys, sort of thing.
Well, but then again, I mean, couldn't you say almost the same thing about the Planet of the Apes, even though it is reversed? So yeah. I mean, that's the other question. See, that's the other question I have, is because when I think about stories, somehow my mind will flash to, something that is similar, something that is a comparison. Like I forgot the name of the guy that wrote Planet of the Apes. It was a French novel.
French author, yeah.
Right. So you have him, you have Huxley, you have Wells, you have Orwell. And, I mean, maybe they weren't all in the exact same time, but they were very close. And the works might have influenced, just like in music, just like in TV.
Oh, yeah.
What came before it, they took some of the themes and the allegories from...
Put it all into a melting pot. Put all the best bits, what they've read before, we'll add this, we'll add that. Because the Island of Dr Moreau, for me, it's not original because it has been done before in other stories of changing humans into beasts, and so it's been done before. But H.G. Wells is one of the most famous authors for science fiction. Right. He was big in his day. It's a classic tale. But for me, there was just something. There was something missing. There was something missing, and I can't put my finger on it.
If they could have done more with the pacing, or do you think it would have benefited from 3 hours, or
no.
Included more from the book. But was there anything you felt that was missing? Because, like I said, I know I read parts of it, but I don't think I read the whole thing cover to cover.
I think this was pretty close to the book. If I'm trying to remember, I don't think they may have missed a couple of things, but it was pretty damn close to the book, as far as I remember. But it needed to be cut down. 2 hours, 20 minutes was way too long for this tale. It could have been done in an hour and a half, or
All right. Let's give this thing a rating. Why don't we? Okay. Because unless we wanted to discuss more of, let's rate it and let's see what we come up with. I'm gonna start. Let's be brave. Let's talk to Lee first.
Oh God, I wanted you to go to Tim first. Right, production-wise, can't fault that. I have got a problem with the casting, narration problem with the length of the audio. So I'm going to go middle for diddle here. I'm going to go 5.
Okay, and Alex, what would you give it?
Yeah, I mean, I barely liked it. The production was good. but as I said, I just have a strange feeling that that's probably why it's been done as movies or maybe a miniseries. Audio-wise, probably not the best idea. And I did get a little confused as to who was talking and when. Plus, like I said, they have to fight the tendency of it being a movie, which I think they've already been 3 versions of it movie-wise, just 2 in modern memory. And there's other books that I can think of, I'm not going to mention again. I'd give it, as far as the sound and the writing, I'd give it probably a 7, but in terms of the length, yeah, it's too long. I think it's probably better off as a TV miniseries or a movie.
So overall 7?
Barely.
So what would be your rating?
I like I said, as far as the production and the writing, I'd say a 7. Length, I'd give it a 4. Overall, yeah, I think maybe they shouldn't have done it. Maybe. Sorry to say. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it doesn't. Somehow it just doesn't work well enough. It's not as good as the other stories where I felt I was more with it and I felt more interested.
Okay, thank you. Tim, what did you think? And let's...
Well, as has been pointed out, it's hard to rate something when the production is very good, because Big Finish always does an excellent job with the production. And I do think they dropped the ball a bit. I guess it could have been scripted better, because I'm not familiar with the book. I've never read the book, but it seemed like obviously that's where the problem lies. That and the case of whether or not it's even an applicable story in our world today. That's maybe it's hard to get your head around that. So the production's great though. I guess I'll give it a 6 because I mean I just didn't really like the story that much. I didn't find it that engaging for like two plus hours. So I guess we'll have to leave it there. Even though I'm an admirer of Wells's work, it's just that's the most you can give it. When, in other words, there's plenty of Big Finish Doctor Who where the acting's great, the production's great, but if the story's not that good, then you're just kind of like, yeah. So.
All right, and I will give it.
Are you? How exciting!
Yeah, how exciting! We have Beef Dad as a special guest. He would like to share with you what his thinking was on this. So what did you think? Are you a fan or not a fan?
To be perfectly honest, the story itself, I'm not a massive fan of. I read it when I was a child. I mean, sort of quite early on. I think I was probably just about coming into double figures when I read it. I've seen a couple of film versions. But it's the original story. It's never really been something that really got me. It didn't grab me like The Time Machine and War of the Worlds. And it's just one of those ones that never grabbed me in the same way as H.G. Wells's other stuff. But the Big Finish version, I mean, you got Ronald Pickup as Dr. Moreau. He's pretty good. I'd like to have heard a bit more from him. John Heffernan playing Prendink, another nice performance. Nice, solid performance. Enzo Cilenti playing Montgomery. That was really good. They did it in diary form, which is basically the way it was written originally, as far as I can remember. There are just a couple of magical moments in it for me. I've got to mention Daniel Good, who played a seaman mate, but he also played Dogman. And Dogman, wow. Yes.
Dogman is, yeah.
Yeah, I think Dogman is really cool. And
like we discussed it, that it was our affection was more for the beasts than for any of the characters.
For the
For the
beast.
beasts.
Oh yeah, yeah. You had to feel sorry for them because they'd been used and abused, basically. Yeah, it's if anything, it's a sad story. It's not so much a scary story; it's a sad story. And of course, Moreau is, well, as I say, he seems to be used very little in the Big Finish production. But there again, I don't remember. I can't. Thinking back, there was a bit more Moreau in the actual book. But yeah, it's one of those what I call a Marmite one. Yeah, it's sort of love it or hate it. As I say, it's a bit of a curate's egg. It's good in parts.
Okay, would you like to rate it, or would you like to? Is there anything more you'd like to talk about it?
Yeah, as I say, the one thing that got me was that scene right at the very end where the dog died, where the dog man died, and that really left me with a lump in my throat. They did that brilliantly. The jungle ambience was brilliant. It was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, the whole ambience of that thing, the sound effects and everything that they did was just absolutely superb, absolutely brilliant. So that's my favorite bit, the good bit, and yeah, I suppose it will get about an 8 from me.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
You were a couple higher than most of us in the discussion. So
Yeah.
yeah, we just knew that you had probably read the book and had watched the movies, and we're up to speed as to, and it was too thoroughly narrated for a lot of us.
But then that's the whole thing about the book. The book is a narration, a real narration.
All right.
Yeah. So yeah, in a lot of ways, so is The Invisible Man. But
Yeah.
The original book was much more of a narration than The Invisible Man was, I felt.
Huh. Well, thank you very much, Jeffrey, and we're going to be doing Frankenstein in a fortnight. Are you interested?
Is that in a fortnight today?
Yeah.
Yesterday. A fortnight yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
All right.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Having read the book, seen all the films, and
well, we've got it. We've got the audio. It's a 3-hour long bit, so.
Really?
Really.
Well, yeah, I suppose it'd have to be. Yeah.
But yeah. So thanks for, and we'll do this again soon.
Oh no, I should be able to do the next one.
Very good.
Yeah, it was just that with it being delayed last week, it threw me out, and I had something planned. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay then.
Thanks.
Righto, dear. See.
I was surprised that I didn't really stick with it very well, so I guess I'll give it a 6 myself. I'll agree with Alex and Tim, and thank you guys for listening to it. Thank you for enduring through the narration, through the story, and maybe we'll find something a little more enjoyable to do next time. So thank you for watching. Please continue to like these videos, give us thumbs up, some thumbs down. Continue to comment below whatever you feel like commenting about this one. Oh my gosh. Bunch of colonialism or whatever you feel like commenting. And then, you know, tell your friends to subscribe to the channel. We're getting close to 100 subscribers, and so that's really fun. That's a really big milestone, and
we're taking the long way around.
Oh yeah, okay. We're taking the long way around. So yeah, thank you, and tune in a fortnight. We'll do something else fun, amazing, and cool on Geeks Assembled Audioheads. Thanks for listening.